Hey, it's Brad. So, truth is funny. Um, you got, it's a really simple concept of a statement being fact or not. And generally, it's in the context of a statement that you're conveying to someone else, or at least declaring in general. And I mean, like, say I put a pencil on a table, and I can say there's a pencil on that table, and I can observe, and from my knowledge and me being the one responsible for being there, all of these things point to me being sure that there's a pencil on the table. Well, if I could put a basket or something over it, then I can't be positive that it's still there, but if I haven't seen any movement or anything, there's no reason for me to doubt that it remains based on my understanding of how physics works. And if there's some way that someone could stealthily take it out of the basket while I'm not looking, then I could say with, as far as I know, certainty in fact, that there is a pencil out of the basket. And then, just like any basic magic trick revealed, turns out there's not, and I was wrong. Well, when I'm talking about truth, I generally mean the objective reality, like whether the pencil actually is there or not. When it's about honesty, that's you reporting truthfully to the best of your knowledge. And that is as much truth as anyone can be expected to be accountable for. But that doesn't mean that you should necessarily limit how much that is. Just because, say a kingdom is only responsible for the people inside its walls. So a greedy king could just put the walls right up next to the castle and have all the people live outside of the walls. If that's the rule, then sure, that counts. But that's a loophole that's detrimental to the whole system, and it's going to collapse on itself. So when somebody talks about like my truth or things like that, if they're referring to my subjective experience of the objective truth and my perspective of how that works, or my distinct path that has led me to experience a facet of the truth that may be unique in that way, that's one thing. But for someone to say, oh, well, I disagree with your fact and, reject your reality, substitute my own, that's borderline, it straddles between presumptuous and preposterous. It's just plain stupid. Like, there's no logic there to discuss. That's saying we're going to agree to disagree on whether or not something is objectively true. By definition, that's not feasible. It's one thing to say there's variability. Like, this has a gray area where it's uncertain. And when something is indeterminable, like not just indeterminate at that time, but cannot be determined, like trying to establish motive with no, like really on a root level, you can't fully know another person's mind, at least not with any sort of current technology. But short of that, you can never truly know what another person is thinking. You can look at patterns and infer that, based on psychology and knowing the person, individually, you might be able to understand what they're doing. But again, you're just kind of guessing based on prior knowledge with, confidence estimates. And your approximation of the truth is only as valuable as it is accurate. I mean, aside from, blind squirrel getting a nut. But your responsibility as a conscious entity, such that I assume you are, is to refine your understanding, not necessarily to simply enlarge. I mean, again, Castle doesn't necessarily want biggest land mass. That's just more responsibility they can handle. But if it has the right infrastructure, it's feasible. So having the right kind of mental structure, having a pattern where everything fits together in much simpler ways, gives you, it automatically generates a more peaceful worldview. It is easier on every level for you to maintain those thoughts because they're all coherent. The more you start to approximate and approach an actual fractal truth pattern, and again, a lot of words that I'm probably associating with rabbit holes, but these things, it's just, there isn't any room for subjective creativity in objective fact. There's plenty of room for that in the delivery of that fact and interpretation, sure, but in delivering objective fact, and this has always been the big, back and forth about news media, they're there to report fact, but then to do so, they are in an entertainment business. And so to be successful as an entertainment business, that's inherently at odds with purely reporting fact. And that comes down to, all sorts of, limbic prioritization and things, but it's pretty obvious on every level that that's at odds, right? You end up with a market that, when the currency goes from money or power or whatever else, or really power being kind of the moving charge of currency, as the currency goes from being monetary to views and likes and follows and subscribers, essentially souls, if you think about it one way. You've got all these individuals that are submitting to you, that are following, liking. When that becomes the currency, then yeah, that's going to become what is pursued, and by the market, at least. It generates really twisted industries, and there's just a whole lot of dangerous paths. So it's just, all you can be held accountable for is attempting to know and say the truth.